Everybody, welcome to the Building, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee. Today, December 11th, it is 4:01. We're going to go ahead and get started. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Chairperson Patty Smith.
Here.
Vice Chair Shweta Bate.
Here.
Alderman Carl Franco.
Here.
Alderman Mike Seville.
Here.
Alderman Bill Donnell.
Here.
5 present.
Thank you so much. First item is approval of minutes of our last meeting, 24-0946, and approval of the minutes for the BZ&E committee meeting held on November 27th, 2024. It's been motioned by Alderwoman
Second.
Bates, second by Alderman Franco. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion approved by voice vote. The clerk, do we have anyone here for public comment?
We do not.
Thank you so much. So we're going to move around a little bit on our agenda. I'm going to take the first item and include one of the ones on the next page to it so that we stick with one topic at a time. So first item is 24-0904, an ordinance amending Chapter 49 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Aurora, by modifying the zoning map attached thereto to rezone the vacant property located at 801 Claim Street from M2 Manufacturing District General to R3 One Family Dwelling District. And I'm going to read the second one in as well. 24-0905, a resolution approving the final plot of Claim Street subdivision on vacant land located at 801 Claim Street.
Good afternoon, Tracy Basic, Senior Planner. Is this on? With the Planning and Zoning Division. The subject property is currently owned by the City of Aurora and is vacant land with M2 Manufacturing General District zoning. The lot is located northeast of the East Aurora Flea Market and is adjacent to their parking lot. The city is currently working on taking an inventory of all the city-owned properties and are determining a course of action. For this parcel, the city is requesting to rezone the property from M1, or I'm sorry, from the M2 to the R3 One Family Dwelling District. And then concurrently with that, we are proposing to subdivide the parcel into 4 buildable residential lots in order to sell them off for future residential homes. With that, I can answer any questions.
Yes, Alderman Seville.
And I take it that staff has had discussions with Alderman Garza on this?
Yes, the mayor's office has had discussions with her.
And
Good afternoon. Long time no see. Alex Alexandru, Chief Management Officer. So yes, we have had significant ongoing discussions with Alderwoman Garza. She is in agreement with this plan. We are very excited that we have an opportunity here to bring 4 new residential developments to this area. We've had a lot of interest for people doing it. And Tracy correctly stated, we are well into an inventory where we have identified properties for divestment, city-owned properties for divestment. We have already put some properties out on RFPs. The same will happen here. And we'd like 4 nice homes with garages. And I think, Ed, we've talked about what our minimum requirements are. So again, another opportunity to take an old M3 or whatever category it is and repurpose it for highest and best use. So part of the process will be a comprehensive, we've really been putting a lot into these RFPs to make sure that we leave nothing to chance and we get the most comprehensive proposal for development there. So we're very excited. And we're looking forward to getting approval so we can put this out there, and then early in the first quarter of 25, right? It's 25 next year.
I think.
We'll be able to look at the proposals and pick the best one and come back for approval.
Thank you. Alderman Franco. Oh,
Just to
my
follow up,
apologies.
if I may.
Yeah.
In my preliminary discussions with Alderman Garza, she wasn't as excited about this as you just portrayed with regard to
Yeah,
adding more density to her ward.
I'm pretty sure it was Alderwoman Garza. I think I know her well.
Well,
We just had a conversation about another significant development where some representatives might be in the room with her, and this topic was brought up. And once again, she was in agreement with it. In fact, she asked about some details of the houses and what they would have, and we answered it, and she once again showed her support. I'm happy to reaffirm that support again, but this is the highest and best use. This is what we've excited. At one point, she wanted to put a walking path, or there was some alternate use she wanted. Clearly, that's not, again, the goal of city property divestment is highest and best use, right? We have to maintain these things. We're liable for these things. Some of them over the years we've turned into pocket parks. We've tried to get away from that. We'd rather repurpose these vacant lots into whatever's the best use. And here, we don't want another manufacturer on this site or anything like that. We have a chance to help continue to rejuvenate that neighborhood with 4 new homes. So if you'd like, I'm happy to check back with her, but as of 48 hours ago, I think it was when we had that meeting, that's when she reaffirmed it.
Like I say, I just talked to her last night at the city council.
And she told you she's against this?
She doesn't like it.
Well,
I think
So-
we have time to
Yeah, okay.
to revisit that before we move.
Yeah.
well, I'm definitely going to revisit it with her because, and she also said this to the mayor and she said it to the deputy mayor.
Oh, okay, I can only convey what I heard in my
Okay,
ears.
well, we
so.
appreciate that.
But in terms of, the divestiture of the city property, which I think everybody supports, but I think besides the highest and best use, I think we should be looking at the overall quality of life. And that doesn't necessarily always mean the highest and best use. That means maybe putting in a pocket park and some amenity that maybe the neighborhood doesn't have. That makes a difference long-term. Because you can have development everywhere, and if it doesn't have quality of life amenities, you have no city, essentially.
Agree 100%, but when we looked at this area for amenities like what you're talking about, there are nearby amenities that were where city resources were spent, and here's an opportunity to create 4 homes, affordable, reasonably priced homes that'll get people in, put this property back on the tax rolls, and benefit everybody, benefit the school district, the park district, the city. So there's no reason really for this to become a park or a walking path with some benches.
Okay.
You're right, though, there are the right places for that. We do not believe that's this location, and that's what we explained to Alderwoman Garza, and when we showed her the plans, she agreed. I'm telling you, I used to play football, but I know.
Well, she brought it up. I even asked her. She brought it up. to
Okay,
me,
no,
so-
I believe you.
All right.
I believe you.
Alderman Seville, if she was not in favor of this, do you think she would have come today to voice that?
Well, I know she's not feeling well today, so,
Okay.
because she canceled her appointment with the lobbyist, so.
I think.
We'll follow up with her.
I thought she'd be here too, so.
We'll follow up with her.
All right, thanks.
Alderman Franco.
So 2 things now. So when we find a developer, we sell it to the developer, we're gonna have contractual things that that must be's in there, right? Because you're not gonna want crappy
So,
homes.
so those contractual items, we don't wait for the contract period. It'll be laid out in the
Okay.
RFP.
So there'll be some written restrictions what they have to do, okay?
Everything will be in there.
All right, and then the other one is, going back to the park, from my park district days, there's always a metric on, where parks are, and you need a park because you have exit distance from another one. So I think it would behoove us, if we're ever gonna do that, we probably do it already, we look at what parks are nearby, what's the distance, and what is appropriate, and then, do you need a park, you don't need a park, and that starts the discussion, basically. you know, because you don't have two, we're not two parks close to each other, but if you have one real far away, that's what the park district does. We don't need one there, but we can use one over there. So I'm assuming we do that going forward in addition.
We do.
Okay, that's all I got.
They've always done that on my side of town. I'm sorry, I just had to add that. Alderman Bade.
Thank you, Chairwoman. What is on the west of it? Is it west or, like, the Claim Street is north?
Yeah, Claim Street is north.
So south of it. What is that property?
Yeah, so just south of that is a parking lot. It's a flea market there. It's the parking lot for the flea market, which is actually just west of this.
And then there seems to be a field.
Maybe that will
Yeah.
help.
Yeah, that's better.
So the flea market is the black building that is in the corner there.
And what are the green fields?
I don't know, I have not, I'm not exactly
Is it
sure what
a
that is.
park or?
It
Could
looks
be a
like
little
it-
soccer field, maybe?
Yeah,
Soccer
it looks
field?
like it's a little soccer field.
It's a public soccer field?
I would have to take a look at
Can
it.
we check that?
Yep,
Um,
I sure
And the
can.
other thing is, will this property be fenced?
No, I mean they can fence it once we sell it off, but I believe it is fenced right now.
Okay.
There is a fence on there right now, because I think that's where we put our public notice sign. But once we sell it off, then we would probably take down the fence.
One more question. It could be very early, but how much tax will these 4 homes generate, if we have any estimate?
I can get I can get that for you for COW. I don't know offhand, but I can look at some similar size homes around the area and get some feedback on that.
Okay, thank you.
Right now, it's 0.
Well, that'll be based on how much the homes
Yeah, I mean,
cost and what they're
is
worth.
it
but
usually
yeah.
1.5% of the,
Like 7,000-8,000.
yeah.
Total
Yeah.
property tax.
It would be, and that I think, yeah, it would be about 7,000 to 8,000, I would assume.
Are there any further questions? Okay, I'm going to go back to the first item, 24-0904, and I have a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion by Alderman Franco, second. Second by Alderwoman Bade. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
We have 3 ayes and 1 no. We have
We got
4
5 people,
ayes,
though.
4 ayes and 1 no, but item moves forward based on voice vote. The second item, 24-0904, have a motion.
So moved.
A motion by Alderman Franco, second. Second by Alderwoman Bade. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
We have, same thing, we have 4 ayes and 1 nay. Item does move forward by voice vote. Second item, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add the second item, and then the last 2 items, I will read all 3 items. 24-0924, an ordinance approving an amendment to the plan description for the USAA Planned Development District being a portion of Lot 1A of the re-subdivision of Lot 1 in Orchard Road subdivision located on 1380 North Orchard Road and 1444 North Orchard Road. And item number 24-0925, a resolution approving a revision to the preliminary plot for Lot 1A of the re-subdivision of Lot 1 of Orchard Road subdivision and establishing springs to Aurora subdivision located on 1380 North Orchard Road and 1444 North Orchard Road. And the third item, 24-0926, a resolution approving a preliminary plan of springs at Aurora subdivision on the property located at 1380 North Orchard Road and 1444 North Orchard Road.
Mr. Chairman, I know I'm a little late on this, but our staff told us that they would check with Alderman Garza on this last item that we just approved, and I don't know if that needs to be a condition, but, you know, my vote was based on the fact that the staff said they would revisit this case with Alderman Garza.
And I think we all should revisit it with Alderman Garza as our duties as aldermen as well, so, but we can still send it forward.
I plan on checking with Alderwoman Garza, as will the mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move on.
So
to-
if I may just open this next one up with just
You may.
one quick opening comment. So this property off Orchard Road, just adjacent to Home Depot, for many years, I want to say probably close to 20 years,
About 27 years.
or longer, thank you, Alderman, has been owned by the Meyer Grocery Company, and their plans were, for many years, to build a new Meyer. And we came close, I want to say in 2006
6.
or 7, thank you, and they instead chose to build in Oswego. So fast forward to about a year and a half ago, maybe around that time, we received word that Meyer was selling off properties, undeveloped properties they owned in Illinois. So they weren't closing stores, but they had decided as a company to no longer build on any of the land that they owned in Illinois. They gave their reasons. It had absolutely nothing to do with the city of Aurora. In fact, when we contacted the VP of real estate for Meyer, they went out of their way to compliment the city, but it's just that they had reasons, business reasons, that they were moving on. So we quickly mobilized our staff. We talked to them and said, we would like a seat at the table and a voice in the future of this property, knowing that property in and around the area off the tollway were going for data centers and logistics, and the last thing we wanted, frankly, at that site were those types of uses. We also know anecdotally that Orchard Road, the businesses that are there now are some of the busiest and most profitable in their respective sectors. We also know, however, that rooftops continue to be a challenge for certain developers and certain types of businesses that we're looking to attract. In other words, number of rooftops and the per capita that go along with rooftops. So while we are competitive, we need, and we know we need, more residential to continue to support the increase in hopefully retail and other uses along there. So they agreed, and fortunately a group we're familiar with purchased it, and Tracy, Ed, and our team, myself included, have been working with them on this design. We think it's an outstanding fit for the area there. It certainly is preferable to any of the other uses that could go there. And so with that, I want to turn it over to Tracy and thank the team too for getting it to this point. And hopefully we can answer all of your questions, and we'll move forward.
Tracy Basic again, senior planner with the Planning and Zoning Division. He stole some of my thunder, so I won't go into some of the background, but the subject property is currently vacant land with PDD, Planned Development District zoning, which is part of the USAA Planned Development District. The USAA Planned Development District was established in 1989 and is approximately 500 acres of land. Over the years, the USAA Planned Development District has undergone several amendments to accommodate ongoing development. Under the plan description, there's currently 8 basic land use designations, which has been divided up into 19 parcels. The subject property is currently Parcel 6, which is a land use designation of office, research, light industrial, and or commercial. We talked kind of a little bit about how Meyer owns the property at least 24 years. They have had this twice approved through city council for the Meyer store and the gas station. However, they are not moving forward with that. So the petitioner is here requesting an amendment to the plan description for the USAA Plan Development District. The plan description amendment would add a parcel 20 and a 9th land use designation of multifamily residential for a portion of the Lot 1A of the resub of Lot 1 in Orchard subdivision, in Orchard Road subdivision. That would be Lot 1 of the Springs of Aurora subdivision as shown on the plan that's kind of before you. And I know Russ will kind of go into that a little bit more in detail because it is a lot of numbers and a lot of area. So he'll kind of go into that in a little detail when he does his presentation. So under the parcel 20, you will have a base zoning of R5 multifamily dwelling district with certain modifications. Under the plan description, it would allow a complex to be located on a single lot, and it would reduce the lot size and the floor area ratio, but require a uniform ownership to avoid fraction ownership of individual buildings. It would also require that the community have a amenity center with an in-ground pool. The plan description does require all units to have individual accessible balconies, decks, or patios or stoops. There are a couple units that will have a larger stoop instead of a patio, just because of the arrangement and that they do have attached parking garages. So you'll see that in there. And then they will have higher minimum floor areas for each type of unit. So the floor area for studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms are higher than what is recommended in the R5 zoning. In addition, we establish parking rigs, being for residential parking is 1.5 parking spaces per unit, with 0.5 of those being enclosed. The setbacks are being reduced to accommodate the parking within the community and accessory structures within the rear setbacks along adjacent to the open space on the west portion of that. The remaining A1 lot of the resub of Lot 1 of Orchard Road subdivision, which is Lot 2 through 5 of Springs of Aurora subdivision, as shown on the plat, is intended to remain under the parcel 6 with that land use designation of office, research, light industrial, and commercial. Basically, it's the detention ponds. There is an outlot of Lot 3, which is that current access road that is behind the commercial. When we've been working with Continental on this, they did support keeping that commercial parking that is along that back curb line. So they will be keeping that, enhancing it. They will be curbing it, and they'll be curbing where the light poles are currently. So I just want to make that clear. And then Lot 2, which is where the gas station of the Myers was supposed to be, will be a vacant lot that will stay commercial and would be able to be sold for a commercial purpose. Currently with the proposal, the petitioner is requesting approval of a revision of the preliminary plat. I kind of went into a little bit of detail with this, but there's 5 lots. Again, Lot 1 would be the development of the multifamily residential. Lot 2 would remain as the future commercial, and then Lot 3 would remain as the access with that row of parking, and then Lot 4 and 5 would remain detention ponds for the entire development. The petitioner is also requiring a preliminary plan for Springs of Aurora. I'm not going to go into too much detail. I know that Russ will talk about this, but the proposal for Lot 1 includes the construction of a 340-unit residential development, 17 two-story apartment buildings, a community clubhouse, and an amenity building, and 5 detached garage buildings. Each residential building consists of 20 units, with 8 of the units having a 1-car attached garage. That's a minimum. There are a couple of those units that do have tandem garages. If you know what that means, it just means that you can park two cars in their back behind each other. So, and again, I will let them kind of go into a little bit more of that. The only other thing that I will just let you guys know is that in your packet, you do have building and signage elevations and preliminary landscape plan. Those will be fully reviewed at time of final, but I wanted to let you know that there are conceptual plans in there. With that, I can turn it over to the developer. He has a
Absolutely.
thing.
Thank you.
Unless you have
Thank you.
questions for me, I can answer those too.
No, what I would like to say is thank you for the amount of detail you did put in here, because I find that to be very helpful. And these are a lot of questions that go through our heads when we're reading these things, and you answered all those questions beforehand, so thank you. And we haven't seen you in a long time.
Yeah, I was going to say good evening again. I think the happiest thing I can say tonight is there are multiple points of ingress and egress to this property, and left turns will not be a problem. Good evening. Good evening, Russ Whitaker, Rosenhoven and Whitaker, on behalf of Continental Properties as the developer this evening. Is that picking me up? Okay. Continental is a Wisconsin-based developer. They're a national footprint developer, but I want to emphasize that they are not just a developer, but they are an owner, operator. They have a management component to the business as well, and I think it's that blended business model that I think is important to staff and speaks to the long-term quality that Continental delivers to the marketplace. I represent various different apartment developers. Many of them are what we would call merchant builders. They're building an apartment community, they're stabilizing the apartment community, but the business model is that they're then immediately selling that. It might be to CalPERS or somebody else, but it's that merchant process. Continental is the opposite. They're designing, building, and implementing a plan to be here in Aurora for the long term. So I think that's hugely important. They've been around for 40 plus years, so there's a longstanding reputation. They've developed 125 plus communities, which translates to 35,000 homes. If you've driven around in the area, I think it's hard to miss the Springs community. I've done these before. I've represented Continental before, so it's kind of ingrained in my mind. I can see them pretty distinctly when I drive throughout many of the communities in Illinois. As we look at this map, you see sort of a smattering of the Springs communities and then other communities that are also owned by Continental. But the Springs is sort of that brand that we see really prevalent. And you can kind of see it's that far western extent of the Chicagoland suburbs, with the most local locations being South Elgin, St. Charles, and then of course North Aurora. There's also one near the Meyer in Oswego. A little bit about the property. When we look at the plans, it's easy to lose track of sort of the overall property. And I guess this isn't unlike last night, right? But the property we're working on here, or the property we're acquiring here, is roughly 34 acres. The property on which the apartment community will sit with is about 17 acres. So it may be 18 acres. So it's roughly half of the total acreage of the property we're acquiring. You can see that some portion of the property is wetland to the west. Some portion of the property is roadways. Some portion of the property is going to be dedicated to commercial ingress and egress and parking. Some portion of the property will be sold to a commercial developer for future development of the commercial corner, as Tracy mentioned. So this is a color-coded map of the subdivision plat, and I think this was sort of helpful in terms of walking through and talking about the various components that make up the property. And I don't have, not part of the subdivision and not shaded on here is all of the wetland to the west. But I just kind of walk through the different parcels and what's happening with those parcels. So lot 1 is highlighted in orange. This lot is, as I said, approximately 18 acres. It's about 53% of the gross area being acquired. This is the only portion of the property that is subject to the plan description before you tonight. Lot 3 is highlighted in blue. This area represents almost 2 acres. It is the cross-access and a parking operation that is essential to the commercial outlets that are located along Orchard Road. I think rightfully, when those commercial outlots were subdivided and built, there was an expectation that there was going to be a large box behind them. When that large box didn't ultimately happen, people got together, put into place a plan for some supplemental parking to serve those outlots. This lot 2 is intended specifically to maintain in place that parking solution that has ultimately worked for a number of years without the shared parking associated with Meyer. Yeah.
So who's responsible for the maintenance? Is that gonna be the developer?
It will.
Wouldn't have part of the lot, and I believe that you guys can help me here too, that Myers allowed this to happen, but I don't know who was supposed to keep it up. There's potholes in there, we've had problems before, so it would be on Continental to maintain it, keep it up, make sure there's no potholes and stuff like that.
Yeah, so Tracy mentioned we're going to improve it preliminarily. If you look at it now, I think it was put in as a temporary solution, so there's no curbing and whatnot around it. So there is a plan to go in and get that stuff corrected. It is part of and is governed by the RCOE. So that's the declaration that governs the entirety of the commercial shopping center. And so this would be the operation of the road would be a shared expense under the RCOE. So we would be contributing to it, but the commercial parcels would also be contributing.
And I bring that up, and Ed, Al, you probably know this, by Lindsay Windows, between Lindsay Windows and gas station, there's that little road there that seems like nobody ever takes responsibility to fix. Just want to make sure we'll get that situation here, so it's okay if it's shared, but at the end of the day, I hope like, well, we're doing our share, you're not doing your share, it doesn't, it's not that. So I just want to make sure because we got a lot of complaints about that, so I want to make sure that if it needs fixing, somebody jumps on it right away, I don't care who, it's somebody that jumps.
I totally understand. I mean, that's not where you've had these defunct subdivisions, right? I mean, this is stuff that we've been working through over the last, since 2008. I guess we probably didn't start working through it until 2012. So the last decade of my career has been working through situations like this. And we've seen a lot of really bad situations where there's been absolutely no maintenance. It's been bank owned, or it's somebody like Meyer who's in Michigan and they're paying absolutely no attention to the property. I think with development here, there will be a lot of eyes on the property. There will be, what is roughly an $80 million investment in the property being made by Continental, and there is, a high level investment. There's strong desire for the property to be maintained to Class A standards, and so I think we will be driving on a forward basis the ensuring that there is maintenance of infrastructure like that.
I just want to make sure that we can make one phone call to one person, so this is on you, get it done. I don't have to make 5 phone calls to get all these people together, hopefully they talk.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that as we move, right, we're here for preliminary documentation. Once we get preliminary approvals, we'll be back for final. We'll get final plat. All the easements will be put in place. I think when we will be further along in the process at that point in time, and so we could bring in sort of the hard documentation and show you exactly how that's working. Yeah. So that is. I can't read it from here, but that is lot 3 we're talking about there. Lot 2 is highlighted in red. So as I referenced, this is the commercial outlot. We are actually in discussions with a third party regarding the sale of this lot after we acquire it. The intent is that it would be developed for a multi-tenant use, much like the buildings that exist along Orchard Road today. Lots 4 and 5 are the really easy ones. That is existing stormwater detention. When USAA subdivision was put in, there were regional stormwater basins. Those stormwater basins provide stormwater for the lot 1 that's going to be developed. There's some slight modifications that is happening associated with the development, but functionally, those basins will stay in place and will serve the residential development that's happening here. Okay, site plan. So this is Continental's preliminary site plan for the development of the community. Not readily apparent at this scale, but I guess getting back to that point of concern regarding the lot 3, the blue area that is the parking. This gets really noisy, and I'm going to break it down to another plan in a second, but you can see there's sort of those back-to-back parking areas here. I'm kind of pointing it out with the cursor here. So this is the commercial parking in this location. This is all residential parking here. What I wanted to point out and delineate is that there is actually a fence, black decorative aluminum type fence that is spec'd for the area between the commercial parking and the residential parking. The intent is that this is not going to be a fully gated community for a variety of reasons that we've worked through with staff, but there will be decorative fence sort of encapsulating the Springs community. If you go to a lot of the other ones, you will see that they are gated. It's like restricted cart access. I've been doing development for them. I've tried to visit them and I couldn't get in. But this will not be gated. But in this area in particular, there will be fence. We will be creating that clear point of demarcation between what is the commercial space and what is the residential space. That they could. They absolutely could. Development is 17 residential buildings. Those residential buildings house a total of 340 dwelling units. Ingress and egress, I kind of joked about that at the start, but primary ingress and egress is to the south, pointing it out here again with the cursor. So this is not a named street, but this is a private drive aisle that connects with Orchard Road. That is a lighted intersection, so there's a traffic signal there. There's also a traffic signal to the north at Sullivan. So there are a number of means by which residents would have protected ingress and egress from the subdivision. I'm kind of focused on the main access, though. I would point out that this is where we anticipate the primary traffic to enter in through. As we look at the more detailed site plan, you'll see sort of the improvements, including the clubhouse that is right at that entrance that is really driving traffic in that location. When you cycle through the development, there will be a secondary point of ingress and egress through the development between, or I guess in front of the hotel parcel, and then back out to Sullivan. KLOA was engaged to perform a traffic study. We have Javier with us today if there are specific questions. Given, I think the fundamental on this one is that given the change from commercial to residential use, there will be a net reduction in anticipated traffic attributable to the property. The proposed residential development will generate about 50% the daily trips that would be associated with a Meijer store. We talk about peak hours, AM peak, PM peak. A Meijer store would see a significant amount of traffic in the evening. It's sort of a little different with the residential community here. This residential community in the PM peak would generate approximately 1/3 of the trips that a Meijer would. So if we're talking about overall pressure on roadway system, this is a really good thing because it's going to reduce that traffic, or what was anticipated as traffic in the PM peak hour. Obviously, given those figures, no surprise that the traffic study ultimately concluded that the current roadways have sufficient capacity to accommodate project traffic. So this is just the southern part of the project, but this is a landscape plan, and it just provides a different scale to be able to look at some details. So here we're looking at the south half of the project, specifically kind of starting with the entrance drive here. In this location. So this would be the Lot 3 main drive, and then this would be the extension out to Orchard Road to the right of this plan. I would point out that the main entrance, you begin to see the embellishment of features, which is going to be symbolic of the level of improvement that we have in a Springs community. For example, the boulevard-style entrance drive includes planted medians with overstory trees and shrubs. You see those planted medians beginning to establish the character of the community right there at the entrance. While the community will not be gated, as I mentioned, there's perimeter fence that will clearly delineate the boundaries of the residential property. Impossible to read at this scale, but if we were looking at the landscape plan, you would see that the perimeter fence is basically around the bounds of the property along here at that tree line, as I had mentioned. Clubhouse, essential component of the community. I think Tracy mentioned it's written into the plan description that a clubhouse is actually a requirement for the zoning associated with this community. The clubhouse and the associated amenities with the clubhouse is located right here at the entrance. That is strategic. We're looking to drive people through this main entrance. We want them to see the clubhouse. We want this to be a center of activity. We want people to drive in. We want people to see people at the clubhouse, activity at the clubhouse, because it's helping to build community. The plan depicts the clubhouse building, the associated pool, and a very large pool deck. While most residents will walk to the clubhouse, I would point out the parking to the east and south of the building. Pedestrian improvements, you'll see a series of walkways throughout the development. You see those walkways around the clubhouse. You see them south of the entrance drive. You see them providing connections between the various residential buildings. So just pointing those out a little bit on this plan. I know this is busy, but sort of the white areas here at the cursor, these are all going to be walkways. You can see those walkways continuing, providing connections to front doors. Up to the north, you see the walkways connecting in between all of the residential buildings. Back at the entrance, this is where we will have a mail kiosk. So again, point of emphasis, driving people in through that front main entrance. I don't know that I ever get anything relevant in my mailbox anymore, but I still walk by my front door every day and pick up the mail. So that is strategically located there at the entrance to the community. I would note that there is a dog park. Dogs seem to be a driving force behind everybody's living habits in this century. So we have a dog park here to the south. There is a second dog park, which not visible on this plan, but is located in the northern segment of the community. When you look,
Can you point out the dog park?
yeah, I'm sorry, it's in this area right here. So just behind what I was pointing out is that mail kiosk. So that's obviously a fenced area with improvements geared towards our four-legged friends. Having heard the discussion on the last case regarding amenities and obligations to provide park space, there is no dedicated park space associated with this development. But as we'll talk about in a minute, we know who the demographic is that's going to live at this community. We have 11, 12 of them in Illinois alone. We have, unlike Pulte, who keeps no records of who is buying their homes in terms of demographics. Continental does have a lot of demographic information. It's important as part of the management of their apartment communities. So we know that more than 50% of the people here of the renters here are going to be age 20 to 34. They're not looking for swing sets and park spaces. They're looking for amenities such as a dog park, a clubhouse, a pool deck, the lounge pool, which is a resort style pool. So we very much geared the amenities to this community, to who we know it is being built to serve. A unique element of the community, kind of as we continue working our way into the community, is a trash compactor located here. Having lived in apartment communities when I was in college and law school, including in Aurora over at the Route 59 train station, I know that the biggest nuisance in an apartment community is how do we collect trash. So people are dumping TVs and sofas and all just kinds of stuff, and it's dirty and it's gross and nobody wants to take the garbage out. So what's unique about the plan here is this is not just a garbage dumpster where people are dumping stuff. This is a compactor. All of the trash is going to be managed through Continental and the management company. Residents, when they sign a lease, are given a special trash bin. That trash bin on scheduled days of the week is put outside of the resident's door. There's an individual, a valet service, if you will, that comes around to each door. They pick up the trash, they put it in the truck. That truck goes, and that truck is the only person who has access to the compactor, and they're handling trash in a very consolidated, a very professional manner, so that we don't have the problems that are, of course, the biggest nuisance in one of the biggest nuisances in an apartment community. So that's sort of my knowledge on the valet trash service. If there are more questions to that, as I finish the presentation, Jen can speak to those details. Tracy mentioned parking a little bit. So west of the trash enclosure, you see typical parking fields. So we're in this location here. You see surface parking areas. You also see two buildings here which are labeled garages. Those are two of the detached garage buildings that are located on the campus. What you see here is representative of the parking configuration that we see throughout the campus. Since we're modifying the parking standard with this plan development, and of course, parking in a residential plan development, particularly apartment community, is a driving concern with respect to developments. I wanted to take a second to drive down specifically on the numbers. So we have a couple different types of parking, right? As you see in this slide, we have 365 surface stalls. We have 136 attached garages. So that is, and we'll see in a minute when we look at elevations. So that is no different than a townhome or a single family home, but that is a garage that you would drive into, open the door from your garage and go directly into your unit. We have 48 detached garages. That's the type of detached garage that I just showed on the site plan. So when we tally those up, we have 550 total stalls that are compliant with how the city would calculate parking spaces under its code. That translates to a parking ratio of 1.62 spaces per dwelling unit. Now, I will note that the plan description says 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit. There's still some details that we're working through. We're at 1.62. Our goal is to stay at 1.62, but given just some shifting that may go around with the plans, we've built in a little bit of flexibility to be able to reduce that number to 1.5. What's not included in that number, though, and I want to be very clear, that 1.62 or the 1.5 does not include parking stalls that do not meet city code for required parking. By way of example, we have 102 apron stalls and we have 34 tandem garage stalls. Tracy mentioned the tandem garage stalls, so that's where I have an attached garage, and my attached garage is two car lengths deep. So it might be a 40-foot deep attached garage. I can pull in and my wife can pull in directly behind me. It fits 2 cars. There's no debate about that. The sizing is completely appropriate. I have a 16-year-old driver at home now. I know that tandem parking is a royal pain in the butt, but sometimes those are the circumstances we deal with in life. So we know that these 34 tandem spaces are available. We know that in operation across apartment communities in Illinois, that people are using these tandem spaces, husband and wife, driving in and using the attached garage, particularly on days like today. The apron stalls are functionally no different. So where we have attached garage spaces, we have an apron or a driveway behind those spaces or behind those garages. No different than if it was a single family home or a townhome where I could park a car right behind my garage door. There is sufficient space in the driveway, if you will, behind these garages that you could park another car. We see that happen. We encourage that happening on a regular basis in the operation of our communities. If we were to include these apron stalls and these tandem stalls into the total parking count, right, they're obviously going to function that way. That's how they're going to practically be used. So if we look at it from that standpoint, we are at 2.02 spaces, parking spaces per dwelling unit. And I think that's code, but we'd have to check with Tracy on that one. So a little bit of a technical issue there, but I think based on, and Jen, who's from Continental, can again speak to that in more detail if there's specific questions, but we're entirely comfortable based on the operation of Springs units in Illinois that this is more than sufficient parking to accommodate the needs of the residents. This slide details unit configuration. So you see here we've got studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. What I would, and I don't, in parentheses, in the red boxes, it tells you exactly how many units we have in each of those configurations. So by way of example, we have 34 studios, we have 136 1 bedrooms, 136 2 bedrooms, and 34 3 bedrooms. I mentioned it already, but I will say it again. We expect more than 50% of the population will be comprised of young professionals ages 20 to 34. There are 34 3-bedroom units contemplated. Based on data from other Springs communities in Illinois, we anticipate less than 10% of the total community population will be school-age children. Here we're showing building elevation. If they're hard to imagine as we're talking through some of this stuff, but here you can see those attached garage stalls. on the face of the building. So front of the building here, back of the building here. We have the attached garages across the face of the building. What I really like how Continental puts this plan together, because not only do you see the elevation, but you're looking in the image below here is sort of a top-down floor plan view of what is happening with that building. So by way of example, here is a garage, an attached garage. That translates to down here. And here you can see this is where we would have that apron space where a car could park in front of that attached garage space. I would point out you see a lot of outdoor spaces with the plan, large patios below, large balconies above, but different configurations. Obviously some larger spaces in the middle units, some slightly smaller spaces in some of the other units. I think the other takeaway with this is, particularly with the SNP below, we're showing the detailed configuration of each building, and I think the thing we should take away is that we're not building a square box here. We could very cheaply build square boxes. When we have articulation, when we have those movements in and out, we're building a much more complex foundation. It's a much more expensive building to build, but we've refined plans for this type of building throughout years of operation and found that the additional cost as part of an initial investment is worth the long-term return on rent. And I think that goes back and dovetails with my opening remarks about getting greater value from a developer who is also an owner operator than someone who's just a merchant builder. Building materials, primary building material is hardy siding. As I think most of you know, there's a high quality cementitious product that comes with an industry leading 30-year warranty. Here's a picture of the building we just looked at in plan form. I think the image better represents the character and quality of the community that Continental seeks to establish with the Springs product. Again, here I would point out the sizable outdoor patio and deck spaces that are associated with most of the units. Last couple of slides focus on community amenities. Here there's a centrally located pergola that will provide a community grilling area. There's a car care center in the northern section of the community. The car care center is part of the maintenance building, provides dedicated space for residents to vacuum and wash cars. We looked at one pet park. As I mentioned, there's actually another on the northern portion of the property. With the car care center in that area, there's also a pet washing station. So I think Continental has done a nice job of understanding who their demographic is and really drilling down on amenities that are targeted to the demographic that is going to live in the community. The next slide is just a couple of representative images for those amenity spaces. You see in that bottom image the car care center, and so that's really going to be something that's valuable for somebody who may not have a dedicated garage space.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any charging stations?
So I will let Jen answer that. So I know that per Illinois law, all of the spaces will be EV capable. So we will have infrastructure built into the initial development of the property so that the spaces that are dedicated for residential units will have infrastructure in place. The wiring under the ground with conduit available at each parking space so that chargers could be installed. As I wrap up here, we'll kick that question to Jen and she can ask about any proactive installation.
Thank you.
So this image is a rendering of the clubhouse that will actually be constructed here in Aurora. The images here show sort of the fit and finish of the interior of the clubhouse spaces. You can see, again, detail and level of investment. In two of those images, you see roll-up doors that are intended to really, when we get nicer weather, be able to open some of those spaces up and make them feel like they're getting fresh air and feeling very very open. So a high level of investment that's being made into the amenities that make this a very attractive community. So with that, I'll wrap up. We're excited about the project. We think it'll be a great addition to the community. It will bring, I think, I've talked a little bit about demographics and who those renters are. I would note that these are not renters who are forced into a community like this. These are renters who are choosing to live in a community like this. The rents that will be charged here mean that the folks that are living here, for whatever circumstances, are probably choosing not to buy a home, even though they may be able to buy a home. They would certainly have incomes to substantiate capacity to build a home or to buy a home in the area, but they are at this point in time choosing to rent. So I think that's a great demographic for Aurora to be attracting. We all know that we have aging demographics in the region, and that there's an active fight amongst communities for that younger population, because once they find a spot in your community, they become comfortable with your community. If they can find housing, they will move up through different types of housing in your community. So I think this is a great entree to provide a very high quality Class A product for those young members of the community, and hopefully Aurora will be able to attract and retain them as long-term members of the community. So with that, happy to answer questions. I'm guessing we got a couple.
Alderman Donnell, you go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A great presentation. Thank you for all the detail. Kind of reminds me of the old days on Plan Commission. We saw big projects like this coming through. So, but a couple of just detailed questions. In looking through the site plan, I see 5-foot chain link fence called out in several locations, and I don't think that's what we normally have. So.
Hi, my name is Jen Patton. I'm Development Director with Continental.
Welcome.
I'd be happy to answer that question. We typically have a chain link fence around our pet playgrounds and in our enclosed yards. And in working with staff, we've changed that to a decorative fence. So it's going to be more of a picket-style decorative fence for the pet playgrounds and the enclosed yard specifically. It'll have some kind of a mesh behind it so that puppies can't run through it and run all over the place. But it will be that metal decorative fence as opposed to a chain link.
Okay, I got a couple more questions too. So, with dogs, you get walkers, and so I was kind of trying to look at your pedestrian plan throughout here. I don't see a continuous walk along the wetland, which I think would be like an amenity that you would want to show off. I don't know if that, I mean, in looking through there, you see parts of the sidewalk, and again, it's difficult to see at this scale, but if you could kind of respond, is that your plan to have a continuous walkway system around the development?
So not necessarily through the wetlands, just because of the restrictions.
No, adjacent to the road.
Sure, yeah, I mean, so if there is a network of pedestrian activity through the site for that purpose, but we really get a lot more activity in those pet playgrounds.
Last one, apron size. How long is those aprons you're going to allow people to park their cars on?
We don't even really count them as an apron unless they're a minimum of 20 feet.
Okay. So you can park on there with your car and still have the sidewalk available?
Correct. There's still plenty of room for the 24-foot drive and fire truck access and all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Franco.
Oh, I'll go last. I got a whole bunch. I'll go last.
I had a couple of questions too. Tracy in her presentation said something that I'm instrumental in with regard to wanting to have one ownership throughout the lifetime of this project. And I didn't see that in the conditions that were at the Planning Commission. Is it in a separate condition someplace?
It's actually part of the plan description,
Great.
so it's within the zoning.
Okay, good. I think that's important. In terms of your business plan, Continental, how many years have you been in business doing this?
We were founded in 1979.
1979. And with all the developments that you've had, how many times have you sold the development after that?
So a handful, maybe.
So you do sell once in a while.
Once in a while, but it's pretty rare. All of our developments are developed for the purposes of a long-term hold.
Good, good. I think that will add the stability to the area and to the ward of the city, so I'm glad you're saying that. And in terms of the amenities, which are very nice that you have in here, and I think that's going to be a great draw for the type of population that you're looking for. Is there anything in the plan description or the conditions that says that they have to continue having these amenities no matter who owns them? And for how long? For the next 50 years or more?
Yeah, it's written into the plan description that there is a requirement to maintain the clubhouse within the community.
And all the amenities that's mentioned as well with regard to
I don't.
the
It
pet
does-
center and the.
It doesn't mention the. It doesn't mention some of the other places like the car care center or the pet parks. I think I was told they're not dog parks anymore, right? They're pet parks. I think we haven't included that language specifically with respect to those other spaces in the plan description, but I think that was probably more just oversight, really focused on the scale and the level of improvement going into the clubhouse. Then, once you develop the pet park, it's primarily fencing, right, in a grassed area, whereas the clubhouse is more of a 7-figure type investment.
Well, the reason why I ask is because I've seen a lot of developments over the years, and I've seen as they age that the owners or the new owners, depending on which development, they tend to cut those types of amenities out and then decline. It devalues the property over a period of time, so that's why I'm asking.
I think we could look at, we could look at language as a condition to the zoning or incorporating into the plan description that references to the site plan, right? We're approving a preliminary plan, and we could include language. I wouldn't want to say that we have to retain these specific amenities, because I think that's probably too restrictive, but that we had to retain amenities on the level or scale or quality of what was presented in the approved plan.
Tracy?
You guys are approving the preliminary plan and the preliminary plat. It will come back for preliminary plan. So those amenities are shown on the plan. If they were going to change those amenities, they would have to come back for another revision to the plan.
Even after they're built?
Yes. Yeah, if they're changing the site plan and they're changing those amenities, then they would have to come back for a revision to the site plan.
So even 10 years from now, if there's a change, they have to come back?
Yes.
Okay. And one last question. In terms of the garages, that we don't want to see storage in there, so I was happy to see that in there. The question is, of course, it's enforcement. And just how do you, enforce something like that? Because it's going to be could be based on two things. One is by somebody complaining, and two is our crime-free housing ordinance, where we have inspections for rentals. Is that something that they'll be enforcing then?
Correct. I mean, we do have, we will have rental, we will be looking at it at that point. I've made it very aware, as it is a condition in here also, that they cannot use that as storage, that those are for parking spaces. So the developer is very aware of that. They do have to get rental licensing. So when we do our inspections, that's one of the things that I can talk to our property standards about to make sure that they're looking for. Now, I will say that there is, like some of those tandem ones, I won't say that one of those spaces won't be used for storage or whatnot, but the majority of it has to be a parking spot that is counted in the parking ratio.
Okay. And I'm hoping that your estimates of your needs for the number of parking spaces, a little bit over 200, is sufficient, because there's not a lot of residential areas where people can park on the street if it's not. And then I don't think there's going to be very good relations between yourselves and the commercial areas if you're intruding into their areas, and vice versa. So I'm hoping that everybody's going to be acting within their lines, so to speak, and it's going to work out for you and for the community, and for the area. And Bill's point, I think, was a good one with regard to the dog walkers. They like to walk. And so there's not a lot of area or sidewalks to walk in the area.
Yeah,
So I don't know what we're going to do with that, but I think that's going to be an issue.
I mean, we
Unless they
can-
physically take your dog to a park that has a walking path.
And we can look at final plan time to add a sidewalk along the wetland area.
Great.
And it does, I mean, it does exist in a lot of places. I mean, if you look at this plan, I mean, from this location along the wetland here, it exists. We're missing a connection here, but then it exists again here. You can see that there's lots of interconnection between the buildings and the spines, you know, up and down. So there are a lot of walking spaces, but I understand your point. It's something we can take a look
I don't
at.
think it would take a lot to make a few connections.
And then lastly, if I may ask one more question, the price point for the rents for these?
Sure. So for these, our projected rents, and those are subject to change at close, but given what we've seen in the Chicagoland market, rents have stayed relatively stable, if not increased. But right now, we're seeing the studios and the one-bedrooms would be $1,500 to $1,875. The two-bedrooms would be $2,140 to $2,350. And then the three-bedrooms would be $2,500 to about $2,800.
Okay, thank you.
If I could, I would point out one other thing. We don't, I've got the USA plan description here. So it's pretty long and laborious document. So I hadn't necessarily thought about this component until I was preparing for today. But there is a designation in the plan development that calls for multiplex. Under the multiplex land use category, you can develop apartments. So there was, even back in 1989, when this grand plan was put together for the area, kind of, let's call it west of Orchard, south of 88. I mean, it was a very large plan development. There was absolutely contemplation that there would be apartments out here. Those apartments never came to fruition for a variety of reasons, including the fact that they ended up building Orchard Valley Golf Course. But it shouldn't go without comment that in fact there was contemplation of apartments up to 15 or 18 dwelling units an acre in the planned development. We're kind of getting there after the fact, after everything else has been built around it. But I thought it was important to in fact call out that was, or what we're doing here is not inconsistent with the original plan for the overall plan development.
Alderman Franco.
All right, so let's start with the name. We got a springs of North Aurora, about a mile away from the springs of Aurora. Right? Am I right?
Correct.
So-
Springs, I think it's Springs at Orchard.
So is that in stone that we got to call them that for the confusion factor?
So we have a
Okay.
marketing team in-house. They go through all the different analytics on
Right.
what names make sense and naming mechanisms. This is specifically a Springs brand, so it would be Springs at
And that's-
something.
I
If you
get
have
it.
a suggestion, I'd be happy to
Well,
bring
I
it
don't have a
back.
suggestion. I just think since the springs are so close to each other, there's going to be confusion factors in the communities. We talk about the springs. Well, what springs we going to? Oh, I didn't know you were talking about that one. So I'm just throwing that out there because I think that wouldn't be a bad idea if it's possible to change it or put some other designation before the word springs so there's clarity. Because there will be a factor. There's no question about that. The other thing I want to talk about is what Alderman Seville, who is our resident historian, on apartments that go up and over time, they depreciate and they fall apart. So I really want to make emphasis that we need to put in language in there, whatever it may be, to make sure that 20 years from now, they look just as good, if not better than they do now. I mean, because we've seen it. We've seen it, so we don't want that to happen. So whatever we can do for that. And I think you kind of hit on the point, because I was always hoping we'd have condos or townhomes there, but you're saying there's a market for apartments more so than condos or townhomes? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I know we have some condos of Orchard Valley. Those aren't very nice, but, so I was hoping we get other ones. But you're saying that we will be able to fill these apartments up as opposed to condos and townhomes?
That's correct. We have a market analysis and market research team in-house that performed our market study. They know that there's enough supply and demand here, even given the proximity to our other Springs communities. We typically have a waiting list. We're at 95, 97% occupancy in almost all of our communities in Illinois.
Okay. And then for our guys, is Alex, did he leave?
Yeah.
He left, okay, because this would be kind of for him. I was always hoping we'd have a Myers there. I was always hoping we would have a Costco there, or something along the lines. Myers decided to sell. It's been a year and a half. We haven't put a whole lot of time in finding a Myers, another Myers type of store, or a Costco. Okay, that's fine. This is pretty good. But for us, Tracy and everybody, that puts a lot more emphasis on that Toyota area to be commercial. That's a big deal, because I'm not talking about the sentiments of the Fifth Ward. And the Fifth Ward would like higher-end restaurants, higher-end entertainment, recreation, retail. So we're not going to have it here. And I think that's a great idea to have bodies, because bodies will bring in more business, but we have to make sure that we dedicate that other spot to the business, the commercial part, because this is what people want. So this looks wonderful, and I think it's going to be great, but then the other component we got down the street needs to be completely dedicated to that, so we can have that balance on the west side. So I just want to throw that out there. I mean, that's a big deal. It really is. I
It
mean,
is,
I
and-
hear it every week.
I agree with you, and I think that's one of the reasons why we were okay with this parcel, because it is behind all of the commercial outlets that this parcel go residential.
Right.
I think that the orchard on the Toyota parcel has better site visibility, so we are very hopeful that that will be the
And
case.
one last thing, which is way in the future, I get complaints all the time for the streets that are turning on the Orchard Road, those lights. You're in the line, 3 cars or 4 cars, you can't get on the Orchard Road, it changes real quick. Well, now we're gonna be adding 340 units that Kane County needs to be on board with this, because that lighting timing system's gonna have to change, because we're gonna have more people getting on. And it's not a safety factor, it's not anything like last night, but what it is just that you can't have 3 cars getting on the Orchard Road before that light changes again. They're gonna have to change that, because now we're gonna have a lot more volume. So these are things that I'm looking at with this whole complex. We're gonna get it done, but I just wanna throw that out there now, because it's a real thing. It's a real thing now, let alone going into the future.
Did you notice me start ticking when you started
know,
saying that?
yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think that's all I got for now. As we go on, I'll have more questions. You guys asked a lot of good questions that I was gonna ask, so thank you for that. So I am pretty excited about this. This is pretty darn good. You know, I had my things that I would prefer to have, as we all do, but this is pretty good. And I think what this is gonna bring to the area as far as the people shopping there and stuff like that, and get more businesses, is gonna be great, because as I have heard, we don't have enough rooftops. And that's the third leg of the stool. We got Orchard Road, great. We got disposable income, great, but we never had enough shoppers. So now we'll have that, so I'm very happy about that. So this is a good thing going forward.
You finished?
I am.
Are you sure?
Few questions.
Alderwoman Bade.
Thank you, Chairwoman. You mentioned about the detached garages, so they're shared or separated, and how are they being rented?
Sure. So those detached garages, each of those detached garage buildings house 12 single-car detached garages. Those are available for additional rent. The rents for those here specifically are going to be probably about an additional $140, $150 a month.
Okay. And I know, Russ, you mentioned approximately 10% of school-going kids, but the school buses are coming in this subdivision, and we have spoken to schools. They're okay.
We have had conversations that this is coming in, so they are aware of this.
Okay. And the last question I have is a combination of 2 things. We were going to go over the EV charging stations. if you
Sure.
could-
So just this past year, January, Illinois passed the law. It's probably most stringent on multifamily rental. We have to provide every stall for residential use to be EV capable. So like Russ had mentioned, all of the infrastructure for that will be in, the conduit will be in. And then if the residents come and they have an EV charging car, then there's a separate entity, third party, that comes in and installs that charging unit itself, tapping into those infrastructure and conduit that's there. And then they would pay for that as a separate fee directly to those EV charging companies.
Any plans of installing solar panels?
Not right now, no.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm very happy to see you doing these individual EVs, because those of us who buy gas look at people plugged into the community EVs, and I think, wow, I wish I could plug my gas tank into that and get free gas, like you're getting free charge. So, but that's a different story. I had questions too, but my colleagues, I believe, asked all of them. The only other thing is the age group that you guys will be attracting, something that can be added at any time. Do you typically do bicycle racks? Because those are all my kids' ages that you're talking about, and they're all big bikers.
Yeah, so they have the capability to add the racks in the garages themselves.
Okay.
And then we could have some bike racks throughout the community, just as an additional amenity.
Not mandatory, just, yeah, they're nice to have
We can take a look at
Yeah.
that at final.
when we get to that point. Okay, so are we finished with questions?
Just wanted to comment that this
Yes.
looks like a amazing development for our city.
Thank you.
Real quick, one last thing. Time period, if everything goes successfully in the approval process, what are we looking at as far as starting the digging and finishing?
Sure. So we're hoping to break ground spring, early
Good
summer
question.
of 2025. When we start construction pretty much immediately after groundbreaking. So clubhouse takes about 10 months, and then every 3 to 4 weeks after the clubhouse, we're turning over one multifamily building until we're complete. So there's no phased construction where half of the lot's going to sit vacant for years. It's an ongoing, so about 18 to 24 months in total until we're fully constructed.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to take these one at a time. 24-0924, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Motioned by Alderman Franco, second by Alderman Donnell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, motion moves forward on voice vote. Item number 24-0924, and I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Franco, second by Alderman Donnell. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0, item moves forward with voice vote. 24-0926.
So moved.
It was, motion by Alderman Franco, second by Alderman Donnell. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This item also moves forward 5-0 on voice vote. Thank you for being here. Tracy, do you have more you wanted to add?
I just wanted to really quickly state that they did revise their plans, and we did get up new plans, so they were in your packets today. There are a couple of conditions that were in there that just said that they needed to revise those, so those will be removed for COW.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you all for being here. Now, we're moving on to item number 24-0951, an ordinance annexing property located at 1115 South State Street to the city of Aurora pursuant to the water service agreement. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion. Did I say it wrong? 51, I'm sorry. It's 24-0950. What did I, 51? Did I say 50? Oh, it's just a long meeting. We have a motion by Alderman Franco, second by Alderman Seville. All in favor?
Aye.
And let's please note that Alderman Donnell has left. That item is 4-0, moves forward on voice vote. Item number 24-0952, an ordinance annexing property located at 1379 Church Road to the city of Aurora pursuant to the water service agreement. I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
And a motion by Alderman Franco, second by Alderman Seville. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 4-0, item and move forward on voice, with a voice vote. 24-0955, an ordinance annexing property located at 865 Schoomer Road to the city of Aurora pursuant to the water service agreement.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Alderman Franco, second by Alderman Seville. All in favor?
Aye. I think that was 5-5, right?
No, I was just going to show the map.
That was 5-5, what'd she say?
6-5.
No, 6-5.
24-0955.
Yep.
Motion and second and voted on. Did you want to share information with us?
No.
You're welcome to. We just, as we have gone through, a couple weeks ago, you guys informed us that, as we went through these, pretty, with a lot of instructions a few weeks back, you said they would be coming forward a lot more, but, between now and the end of the year. So we understand why we're here with these, and so unless you have a presentation, we're prepared to move forward.
Got one more? Or is that it?
One more, yeah.
You have a question?
No.
Got one more.
I realize that, but Alderman Seville's mic is on, that's why I'm asking if he has a question. Okay. Item 24-0956, an ordinance annexing property located at 1102 Rathbone Ave to the city of Aurora pursuant to the water service agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Motioned by Alderman Franco, second by Alderman Seville. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That item moves forward 4-0 per voice vote. That is the end of our meeting today. No need for closed
Motion
session.
to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn by Alderman Franco, second by Alderman Seville. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting is over. Thank you.